Hey, you!
Who, me?
Yeah, you!
What about me?
What do you think of the Middle Ages? Well, I'm gonna tell you about it. In the 4th century, Rome kept getting attacked by its outside neighbors, and then Justinian became the Eastern Roman Emperor.
In 1077, the Tower of London actually began its construction. And
Isn't that the Eiffel Tower?
no, it was actually one of the best keeps the British had at this time. In its time, actually. But 11 years later, the College of Bologna was actually made, and it was one of the oldest colleges that Europe has today.
In 1347 to 1350, Italian ships brought precious cargo from Asia to Europe, but that's not all they were carrying. They were also carrying the Black Death, or the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague claimed the lives of over 1/3 of the population in Europe at that time.
The bubonic plague wasn't the only plague that was going around at this time. There was another plague known as the plague of drunkenness. People all across Europe drank themselves to death, thinking it'd be a connection that would protect themselves from the Black Death disease.
Joan of Arc was a girl born in 1412 in France. By age 17, she had become a prominent military leader. She ended a century-long conflict between France and Britain.
There was no greater nation in the 1200s than the Mongols could conquer. They were a massive nation. They were very brutal when it came to battling other nations and empires. But they were not driven by a political view, a religious view, or just the look of food. It was by one man, and his name was Genghis Khan.
Hey, you know Charlemagne began his reign in 768. And you know, on Christmas Day 800, Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Sadly, Charlemagne passed away in the year 814.
In 866, the Vikings, known as the Great Army, arrived in England.
You mean like the football team, the Vikings?
No, the Vikings, like the brutal Vikings.
Oh, the
It was like-
Vikings.
yeah.
Like with the little...
Yeah.
Cool. I'll see you later.
And, yeah, whatever. Northumbria, East Anglia, and Mercia were all overwhelmed by this. And 885 through 886, the Vikings attacked Paris. And did you know that Muhammad was born in 570? If you don't know who Muhammad was, well, he was the leader of Islamic belief. He was the one who taught all these people. And also, about 50 years later, the Sui dynasty was established in China.
Another important achievement of the Middle Ages technology was the mechanical clock, which was developed during the 13th century. While the origin of the mechanical clock is unknown, the first such device might have been invented in monasteries, which was used to toll a bell to call all monks to prayers. The first mechanical clocks with proper references were large weight-driven machines which were used to be fiddled into towers. These clocks are now termed as the turret clocks. These early clocks didn't have any dial or hands, rather than used to strike the hours and proceed sound. The oldest mechanical clock situated in England, which is still working as the Salisbury Cathedral, and it dated from 1386. Gunpowder had long been known to Chinese. However, it became a serious battle material during the 14th century as the people of Europe medieval period succeeded in developing and advancing it as cornered gunpowder, and they also produced cannons. According to recorded history, cannons were first used in Europe in 1324 during the siege of Metz. Corned gunpowder was practiced in Western Europe. It significantly increased the power of cannons, making them more lethal. During the 14th century, Europeans also invented the super guns and volley guns. In the Middle Ages, knights were the most important part of the king's army, and most people applied to serve in it. Young knights were trained to fight on mounted piggybacks. Through this technique, they learned how to balance the skills they needed to mount for a horse and during battle. Training to become a knight lasted for 7 years as a page and an additional 7 years as a squire. One of the most gruesome Middle Ages facts is that most of the trials were trials by ordeal, and were especially common in England. These trials entailed subjecting the accused to painful punishment such as burning him with a heated iron. The accused would be found innocent if the wound ended quickly, as it was believed that God had healed him and he was innocent. As much as humans were put through these trials, so were animals. In medieval times, animals were put on trial for hurting or killing a human being. For example, the parliament in France ordered that a cow be executed for harming a human. The cow was later hanged and later burned.
During the Middle Ages, there was a series of holy wars called Crusades. There were several of them, and they were usually between the Christians and the Muslim empires. The Middle Ages lasted from 500 AD to 1500 AD. Hey, you! Wait, what am I saying? Hey, you!
Go on.
He's just gonna...
In the year 570, Muhammad was born. If you don't know who Muhammad was, he was the basis of
Dude, my wrist can't handle it.